So I'm doing something very different today. I'm going to be talking to you about my food diary. Don't worry, I'm not changing my channel to a weight loss channel, and I'm not going to tell you in depth everything that I had for breakfast and lunch today. This is a document that I actually designed a few years ago for keeping track of my exercise and what I'd eaten, and also the calories. I know not everybody wants to be counting calories, and I haven't done it for a very long time. But while I was using this diary, I actually managed to lose about 3 stone, just over 3 stone. But then since then, I gradually got back into bad habits, and I wasn't keeping track and paying attention to what I was eating. And I have unfortunately put most of that weight back on. So I was like, right, okay, I need to get a grip and sort myself out. Because I've done it before, I know I can do it. It's just getting into that right mindset, isn't it, to actually tackle it. And the last few months, a few times I've started trying to keep a food diary, but just in a normal notebook. And I keep forgetting to do it, or I do half a day and then I don't bother doing the rest of the day, and then I miss the next day, and it's been very haphazard. So I was like, right, okay, come on Laura, get your old food diary out and print it off. Because there's something about writing it down, and especially in a dedicated book, I think. I know it's not going to work for everybody. Some people perhaps prefer to track electronically. You know, there's lots of different apps that you can download to count calories, to track your food. But for me, there's something about physically writing it down which makes me feel more accountable. It's like, you know, when people are struggling to manage their money, often the advice is to use cash because it makes you more aware of what you're spending. So for me, writing down what I eat, like actually physically writing it down, not just ticking a box on an app, it just makes me more conscious of what I'm eating. So the purpose of this video today is just about this diary. So I thought, well, if I'm reusing this file for myself, perhaps other people might find it useful too. And because I've recently opened an Etsy shop, I thought, well, maybe this could be my first digital item on my Etsy shop. And it will just be a couple of quid, like it's not going to be expensive. But I'll put a link to that in the description below if you would like to print a copy for yourself. And then in this video, I'll show you how to print it as a booklet. And it's just stapled. I'll show you later, but I've actually got this long arm stapler so that I can kind of reach all the way into the book to staple it. But most people don't have one of these. So I will show you a little hack where you can use just a normal size stapler, or even a tiny stapler, and still be able to staple the pages together. So when I designed this for myself, of course, my purpose for using it was to try and help me lose weight and to get more active. But there are other reasons why people might want to use a food diary. For example, if somebody feels that they've got an intolerance to food, but they're not quite sure what it is, you know, perhaps keeping track of what you eat. You know, sometimes a doctor might say to you to keep a food diary. But let's switch to the laptop, and I'll show you how I print it. And then I'll also show you the trick about stapling it if you've only got a small stapler. Hopefully you can see my screen okay, because I'm just filming using the camera. I'm not doing any fancy screen capture through my PC because basically I don't know how. Just being honest. Okay, so when you're ready to print, I always just use the shortcut of just Control P to bring up the print dialog box. Now I've already printed one to test that I knew how to do it, so it's already showing as the booklet style, but probably when you open your print it will just show you kind of the standard page. Because the document is set up as A4 pages, I mean, you could just print it out straightforward A4 if you like, but I designed it with the idea of it being printed as an A5 booklet. So if I just sort of talk through the settings, which I do, obviously I know different computers, different printers will have different options, and you may need to go into some of the menus to get the right options that you need. But if I talk through the settings that I use, and then hopefully that will give you enough information that you will be able to figure out how to set it up for your own printer. Okay, so obviously my printer is selected. I'm just on grayscale, so just to print black and white. All pages are selected. And then here on the size, I've actually got a handy option here just to select booklet. If you've not got booklet on that screen, like I say, you might need to go into the properties or the advanced settings to find the booklet setting. Even if your printer doesn't do automatic double-siding, there should be an option for doing booklet. But what it will get you to do is it will print all of the front sides, and then you kind of put those back in, and then it will print all of the back sides. Okay, so I say on this one I've got the easy option just for booklet. It's showing binding on the left, which is just standard, and it's showing the orientation as portrait. And you might think you need to change that because obviously it's printing landscape, but the original pages that it's printing are portrait, and then it will just automatically sort that out. So that is all I need to set up on here, and I'm ready to print. Okay, so once your document is printed, it should look like this. If you wanted, you could do this outside page on a thin card or on a different colour if you like. But because it's just for a food diary, which I will probably keep for a while, and then realistically, you know, they're going to be recycled at some point. So I'm not doing anything fancy. I've just plain paper. So obviously you want to fold it in half. If you've got a bone folder or something similar that you can sort of firm up the crease. And of course, if you wanted to, you could poke holes through and stitch it as if it was a signature for a bound book. But again, you know, for what it is, it's probably not worth that amount of effort. So I've actually got a long arm stapler, which is great because I can just open up the booklet, put it in. I mean, I could even do, you know, much bigger booklets if I wanted to and staple. But I know not everybody's got one of these. This one I got second hand because they're actually pretty pricey. You know, it's at the end of the day it's just a stapler, but it's quite a pricey item, so I ended up getting this one second hand. But like I say, I know not everybody's got one of those. So what if you've only got a stapler that's this big? Clearly you can't staple in the middle with that. Or what if you've only got one this big? But I'm going to show you a little trick. So even if you've got a stapler which is too small to use in the traditional way, you can still staple in the middle. So all you need is something fairly soft. I've just got a folded up tea towel here. This is the same tea towel I use when I'm doing my bookbinding for punching the holes. The other thing that you could perhaps use is a cardboard box. I've used that before as well. And all you do is you just lay your book on here. I don't know why I'm doing it upside down all the time. Anyway, you just want to make sure that your pages are in line, and then with your stapler you just want to open it up as if you're going to be changing the staples. So I think pretty much all standard staplers open up, perhaps not completely flat but mostly flat. Even the little one, whoops, opens up. So actually I do one of each. So basically all you do is you just line up the stapler where you want your staple and you push it down, and then because it's gone into something soft, the spikes of the staple are sticking up through. So all you have to do is just fold down the little spikes. Now obviously if you're using the staple normally, it's got these grooves in the bottom which put a neat little curve on the end of the staple so that there's nothing sticking up. So obviously we've not got that here because I've just folded it manually. So you do just need to be just a little bit careful, because you know the ends of the staple are not kind of curled down like they would be if you were able to do it properly. And the other one I'll show you just with the tiny stapler as well. Oops, got that one a little bit off center, but that's okay. And then just fold the ends over, and there you've got your little stapled booklet. Let's move these staplers out of the way. Okay, so obviously you've got space on the front to write which month it's for, and then inside there's a page where you can track your progress. So I've put in here 3 examples, like maybe you're tracking your weight, your BMI, or your waist measurement, but I've also left some empty spaces because maybe you want to measure your arms or your legs or your hips. Maybe there's some other kind of measurement. Maybe it's if you're having a blood test for your blood sugar, maybe you want to kind of monitor that, start and end, although you're perhaps not going to be having that done on a monthly basis. But whatever kind of thing that you want to measure and track your progress. So you've got what it is at the start and the end of the month, and then how much that's changed, whether that's good or bad. And then space for your goal for the month. I quite specifically put goal and not goals, because you don't want to overload yourself with too many ambitions. And then perhaps some other longer term goals that you're working towards. And then from there on, we've got the daily trackers. So there's 31 pages. And then on the page itself, obviously we've got the date. I've got a box here for exercise. So if you are trying to improve and do more exercise or more walking, maybe you want to just put in here your step count. Or maybe if you've been to the gym, or you've been for a 20-minute walk or an hour walk, or whatever it is that works for you with how you're perhaps trying to measure your exercise. If you're measuring your exercise, I mean, obviously you don't have to use that. And then for the food diary part, I've split it into breakfast, lunch, dinner, a separate section for snacks and for drinks. So in the past, I've sort of experimented with doing a food diary which was just all in chronological order, and the snacks were sort of in there and the drinks were in there, but it was harder to kind of see patterns because it was just all in just one big block. So I thought separating out the snacks, for example, you can then see, am I having too many snacks? Just at a glance. And the drinks, you're probably thinking, well, I'm going to have more than 5 drinks in a day. But for example, you know, if I have a cup of tea in the morning, I might just put tea times 1, and then the next time I have a cup of tea I just add another 1 onto the tally. So for each different type of drink you can just tally up how many. One of the things which I was trying to do was to eat more fruit and veg. So although my fruit and veg will be listed, you know, however I've eaten it during the day, I've also got these 5 little circles at the bottom. So each time I have a piece of fruit or veg, I can just colour in the little circles. So again, at a glance, you know, you can kind of flick through and see how am I doing with increasing my fruit and veg. There's also a column for calories, so for individual items, and then the totals for each meal or for your snacks and drinks, and then your total calories for the day. Of course, I know not everybody is going to be counting calories. You don't need to use that. But for me, I did find it helpful because it was like I'd set myself a budget. And, you know, like with money, if you've got a limited amount of money and you look for something for sale that you really like, you know that it doesn't fit in your budget. Or maybe, you know, maybe you want 2 of something, but you can only afford 1. And that's kind of how it worked for me with the calories. It just really helped me be more conscious of what I was eating and what I could afford to eat. And then at the very back, there's just you can see where I didn't staple that in the middle very well. There's just a blank page for notes. So for example, you know, if you usually have the same thing every day for breakfast, or very similar, or you kind of have roughly the same amount of milk in your tea or your coffee every day, you know, maybe you want to have a few items where instead of having to calculate the calories every single time, you can just look and say, oh, if I have 2 slices of toast with, you know, low fat spread, it's this much. If I have 2 slices of toast with butter, it's this much. If I have sugar in my coffee, or if I have sweetener in my coffee, you know, whatever are the regular things that you have. Of course, you could use this for other things as well. You could perhaps use this, you know, to reflect on what's happened during the month, what you've done well, what you'd like to do different next month. You know, you just use it however you want. And then obviously it's just blank on the back if you did want more space for notes. So there we go, there's my little simple food diary. Like I said, this was something that I designed to use myself, but I hope that perhaps it might be useful to some of you as well. Even if you're not trying to lose weight, you know, if you're tracking your food because you're trying to, you know, isolate what kind of foods make me feel ill. You know, if you've got kind of food intolerances, it's not always that easy to know straight away what it is. So if you want to keep a track of that, and then maybe instead of the calories, you know, you could just write in here how you felt after you've eaten certain things, or, you know, you can use this in whatever way works for you. But I hope that that will be useful for some of you. And like I said, don't panic. I'm not turning into a weight loss channel. My focus is still on the arts and the crafts and the creative side of things. But I say this is just going to be in my digital printables section on Etsy, and you can find a link for that down below.